Welcome, everyone. This podcast still doesn't have a name. Sage and I will discuss this in the future, but right now I'm here with Sage Datuin. I'm Paul Delos Santos. Welcome to right now. We're just recapping Riot, which is fun. So
essentially, yeah,
essentially recapping Riot, which is always fun because the splits did just end. Well, thank you, Sage, for your time. So, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about Val first or League first? Because Val's kind of wrapping up on Sunday, right?
yeah. Val is wrapping up on Sunday, but then probably could be focused.
Yeah, has anything surprised you about that?
In Valorant Masters London, I think the biggest surprises has just been the rise of Leviatán, and then the I don't want to say downfall, but the slight underperformances of NRG and G2.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I was just thinking about this, and just NA Valorant just goes into various like ups and downs. Like America's Valorant just has their highs and lows. It seems like it's like they'll be really good in certain spots, and they'll just be really just like underperforming. Why do you think that was the case in London, though? Especially since G2 is like they're like cross regions, like in other games.
Yeah, I think there's multiple different things. I think specifically for NRG G2, their schedules are really packed. So then I think there's little leeway for time to actually just recover and process the finals weekend into going into Valorant Masters London. For G2, they had a little bit more time. So I think what I was seeing online was that the players all got the flu one by one. And I usually am not someone that likes that type of excuse, but I will give that for G2 specifically, primarily because of how consistently they are able to just get top 4 internationally every single time. However, it just is disappointing because this is probably the event that they should have at least gotten top 3, primarily because of them being able to pick XLG and then have another easy opponent with Foot. So like that's kind of just your road to at least getting top 4 or top 3 easily compared to some of the other paths where they've had a lot much tougher opponents. And then for energies, I can kind of understand them faltering a bit. It's just a little bit surprising because people have just gotten accustomed to them improving their performance when they got to the international stage, and for them to have their performance be in VCT Americas, which was barely qualifying for Valorant Masters London, and then just not even making top 8, let alone what people expected, which was they expected top 4, but top 6 was ideally where you want it to be if you could. But it was rough. And yeah, they definitely have a lot of work in the investing.
I'm kind of find it interesting is that South America's got, it seems like South America's like very good at this game. Like they're very good at Valorant. So what do you think it is about like South America that's kind of growing in their talent level? Because it seems like League's also coming up, and but Valorant's kind of been a game that they've been able to kind of just like get to faster than say League.
Yeah, I mean, first I just wanted to say with Leviatán, that was actually my winner's pick for Valorant Stage 2. I talked about this before just with people. But I am very surprised with how fast they're growing in Stage 1 in London. They're already in the top 3, and then there's a possibility that they'll make it to the grand final as well. But I think the reason why South America has really good performances in Valorant, or at least they're accelerating a lot faster compared to League of Legends, it comes from their background in FPS and in Counter-Strike and just Crossfire, Quake. There's a very strong scene for FPS and how they develop talent over in Brazil and some of these other countries too. And I think that's carried over into Valorant. Albeit it did take a bit of time because I think maybe there's this placebo effect in the first year in 2021, thinking, oh, well, it's a Riot game. So then in League of Legends, we're more of a wildcard region, when in reality in FPS, for the Americas region in Counter-Strike, Brazil is the one that does carry North America, South America, and just everyone to be able to at least put up some decent standing with
Mhm.
European countries.
It's like funny that you mentioned like Counter-Strike. It's like, oof, that's a different ball game, and I think it took a little bit for Brazil and the South American teams to kind of pick it up because there is such a different game in terms of util. The whole util between the two games is ridiculously different, and I think that's what I think. I think that's part of it because I think gunplay. I'm pretty confident that South America did really well in adapting from CS over. I think it just came down to how quickly adapted to util. What do you think is going to happen with the Americas and heading into the next split, which is I think that's the next split going into what is the next split going for? Is that going for Shanghai or Brazil?
Yeah, you're going for Shanghai, but then this is gonna be the first time that the VCT Americas League does a roadshow for.
Oh, okay.
So the teams that make it to, I believe, top 4, which would be finals weekend,
Mm-hmm.
will go to Brazil to play for two. Like the top 2 teams will get a direct slot into Valorant Champions Shanghai, and then the next 2 teams will be based off of championship points, which is going to be really interesting and exciting.
What I mean, how close is it right now based on what you know? Because I'm still getting into Valorant. I'm kind of easing my way as I make the checkpoints of like esports. Valorant is next on the list, but I mean, overall, how close is that? Points race?
No, it's really interesting. I think the sense is that the teams are probably going to want G2 and NRG to win out because they're the teams that have collected so many points with things. Even though Leviatán has had a really great run to Valorant Masters London and then getting second in VCT Americas Stage 1, in my opinion, I think they should have just won that final. They did collect a lot of points from Stage 1, but NRG and G2 were each able to have around 7 championship points before Stage 1 even started. And them having that type of advantage on top of them also making London and just getting some points from the VCT Americas Stage 1, that puts them in a really good position to just be ahead of the pack. And then it's really interesting from what I remember. I think you have just Leviatán, Furia as the next Leviatán, Furia, and you kind of have like 100 Thieves somewhere in there as like those 3 teams fighting for those final 2 spots. This top 3 run really does help Leviatán because they really needed those points. And I think that this getting top 3 at London will get them enough points to where if they just make top 6, top 4, I think you already have 3 teams that are secure for champions, and then it's that final spot, which will either probably go to Furia or 100 Thieves, depending on if a team makes just a random run to top 2, but I don't think that's likely.
You don't see Sentinels making a magical run back, and yeah.
No, unfortunately, no. But I do think they're a lot better than where they finished in Stage 1. I mean, something that I guess I just want to remind people is that while they did get 5th and didn't make playoffs, they were 2 rounds away from getting 2nd in that group. And then that would have put them in a position to have where Furia ended up in the playoffs. Well, they didn't end up that great either, but it would have been at least a better slotting to where they could have maybe even gotten top 6. So it's really cool, but I think their ceiling is probably 5th, 6th because of just how strong VCT Americas is.
Hey, so we're not gonna see T1 TenZ anymore.
T1 TenZ. I don't know. I mean, maybe one day. I think the open circuit, you could see him come back, but
I think he's happy right now, chilling and just making content, and he can. He's one of those guys that'd be like, he's kind of like Michael Jordan in those retirement years. He's kind of like, hey, if you ever want to come back, every team will want you. Kind of deal.
100%, yeah.
It's kind of like how, and I think this is and the thing is that people forget how young he still is.
Yeah,
which
very
is really,
young player.
yeah, and and all things considered, I think he did, I think he did what he needed to do for his life, and now he's, maybe he gets that competitive itch again. You never know. You never know with these guys. Yeah. But and I think it's just interesting to me how how the world kind of just adapted from CS and finally have figured out the game to a big picture. So, I did want to talk about this. Like, what is the major change for next year? I saw some things about like how how to lay out how everything's going to build for next year. But overall, what are some early returns on terms of that, of how the partnership structure and everything else like that works?
Yeah, so we actually finally have more information on how that's going to work. So next year, it was recently revealed actually this week, Leo Faria and then just the rest of the Valorant VCT team put out
Mhm.
a tweet or just a public release statement stating that 8 of the 10 teams in each region are going to remain partnered teams, I believe. Or it's going to be 8 partner teams, and then each little cup that
Mhm.
qualifies teams into the Valorant Master stages is still going to have 12 teams. It's just at minimum 4 of those slots are going to be going to open qualifying teams and non-partner teams.
Mhm.
You're most likely going to have a split of 8 partner teams for open qualifier teams. But then the thing that's really cool is that the partner teams aren't guaranteed slots into these cups to qualify themselves for Masters, but they do get some, I think they get some incentives in terms of just support from Riot and extra monetary value or stipends to be able to help support the team because they are franchise partners.
It's kind of funny because I think the weird thing is that we'll talk about this with League. It's like it just feels
Yeah.
like there's like a mixed bag. I think it's almost unfair that, you know, like you're a partner team, so you're naturally going to be there. But if you're qualified through Open Cup, it's like you also don't guarantee yourself a spot for the
Yeah.
following year. So I feel like sometimes it just feels better that if they can, I think for the way my mind immediately works when it comes to these spots where you got to qualify for a spot in the tier one. um I feel like the teams who qualify need more support than the partner teams. Because it feels like there's like the ideal goal, I think, isn't necessarily for you to have a full relegation promotion system. Probably isn't right now viable, but you make that viable by making so that if a team can stay in the top in tier one for the longest time. So I think they're on the right track. It feels like by having 4 open teams. I just don't. I want to see more support for those guest teams so that if they have to go back down, they can at least retain part of the roster. Because as you probably know, like if they have a good roster, get promoted up, they drop back down. It's like, well, who's going to poach these players? And no matter what happens, it always seems like that poaching is going to happen regardless. But what are your thoughts on just like just the whole model itself in that perspective? Where yeah, you have 4 open teams, but are they going to be able to get the support they need to be functional and competitive even?
Yeah, it's definitely tough to say for this current age of esports. I will say that I think that the market for the industry is starting to correct itself a bit more, or they're
Right.
kind of understanding the value of how much their players can actually get you instead of just overpaying because they have Sacramento Kings money or something.
Yeah. Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah, but I think they were. I remember I asked this question actually in the Santiago press conference, in the finals press conference to the VCT team.
Mhm.
And then they were talking about how they were going to start providing more support and that 2026 was just their way of being able to play around with the types of concepts that could help tier 2 teams be able to actually find sustainability. I would love to see teams that do make the cup and then top performing teams maybe something that play if they make it to playoffs in those open qualifiers, giving some type of support in terms of just a boot camp or a little experience to incentivize players to actually have moments where they're with their team and then perform a lot better, or getting them practice with tier 1 teams or doing something would be really helpful because that type of support really does help the scene grow. We were actually talking about it earlier in this podcast where the reason that Counter Strike was able to build a really good base with Brazil is because of the different in-houses and the types of tournaments and things that the actual pros were doing to help foster a scene of interest. And that's something that I would like to be able to see with some of these tier 2 teams. and just them getting a little bit of support. Because realistically, unless you're a Shopify Rebellion, your salary is probably $1,000 to $1,500 if you're a top tier 2 player.
Yeah.
Is really sad because then a lot of those players are going to be
in LA
and just get to tier 1. Yeah, and that's hard to sustain. Yeah, you can't do that.
No, it's impossible. That's why I'm in Vegas. But I mean, it just feels like, you know, right now I think the correction is happening. I think the scaling of salaries has been vital. Don't get me wrong. I think the players were in every within their right to try and get the highest possible money. You will never see me say that players don't deserve the money. It's just like, you know, for the longevity of the league and just the game and just esports in general, is that you can't have like the Shohei Ohtani salaries right off the rip.
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's only a few players that can really do that. I think TenZ and Faker are players that, you can probably command. Well, I mean, not Shohei Ohtani money, but like you can probably command high 6 figures, 7 figure per year because of just the things that you bring outside of the league.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing that's a bit tough, is that it does suck that esports players, realistically, they do have to focus on things outside of just being a professional esports athlete and pro.
Mm-hmm.
And also even for tier 2, a lot of teams won't be able to just fully sift through all the different VODs unless you're making like top 3 in the VPL or the tier 2 system. And that goes for league as well. So you could be a really good player, but then if you don't have a brand and then you're not placing in the top things, they're just not going to be able to see your VODs even if you're getting 30 kills per map.
Yeah, and I was actually talking with the Arizona State's league team, and they expressed these same kind of concerns, which brings us, you know, as we talk about this further, is like the whole path to pro system. It doesn't seem like there is one. It almost feels like it is the luck of the draw, because there probably is like a bunch of challenger players. Because what I mean, I was looking at the ENC roster for United States, right?
Yeah,
and like they're all good players, but I'm just like, you know, don't get me wrong, like some of them have been around tier 1 for forever. I think the youngest guy, the 2 young kids, which is Darkwings and Griffin, for that tier 1 team, they're rookies in the LCS.
Yeah,
and I don't see like a clear path for them where they can easily like make the impact that some players do. Because, you know, don't get me wrong, it is very hard to be a pro at any competition level of any kind.
Yes, absolutely.
But I feel like there's even a harder time than even the NBA, which, you know, is the lowest number of professional spots across the professional sports scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's less of that in esports. And, you know, here we are with 8 LCS teams. So there's, you know, anywhere between 42 to 48 slots, you know, depending on how many subs each team will carry going into Worlds. So, like, is there a fix, do you see a little bit for like either for League or Valorant?
I think Valorant is on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
And that opening up the system for esports and then kind of going a bit back, finding a balance between the learnings that you had from being grassroots and then just having that opportunity for teams to make these types of storylines to be able to get into tier 1 or be able to make a wild run helps with the profitability and then just being able to sustain the industry a bit more. And then I think that also just creates an opportunity for some of these tier 1 teams, or even if they're not partnered teams, because there's probably going to be esports orgs that aren't partnered, but then we'll be able to provide that support now on just less of a salary and overhead cost because they just don't have to be in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I think is going to be really helpful. But as for League is in a tougher scenario because I think they're still trying to hold on to them just completely shifting the esports market in 2016, 17.
Yep. And I think like it's kind of funny that they were the first to shift it and they're going to be the last to really adapt to the new era. You know, I think that's kind of you know, I think the difficulty is that you know, and I think this is a problem with like just in general with sports in general, or even like anything in general. Nostalgia is carrying too hard, and
Yeah, I
and I
agree.
and I think nostalgia from 2016, 2017 has carried way too far because how many players from that era, which is, you know, a handful, but none in NA, they're all overseas. They're all in overseas and all in Europe. You look at G2, it's Caps. Caps has been there forever. You know, he was part of that team that almost did the Golden Road. And then you have all the teams in Korea and China with like some of the longest running rosters around. Here in NA is like it seems like we almost run through rosters. I think, you know, out of the 8 teams, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, Cloud9 has a bad stretch, right? And we associate choking with just the brand, not the players. It's almost like, you know, for like I don't want to be like sounding like the complete. I talked about this with Jim from the LCP.
Mhm.
I don't want to be the Cloud9 um, sympathizer here, but I will say this. You know, yeah, I get that 4 members of that team were part of the team that did not win last year. and there and then how many players, and then you look back a little further, it's like Blabber is the one guy who was there 2 years ago. You know, so it's kind of like, you know, they're constantly changing around, so, you know, calling for changes when APA has just walked in for the, you know, first 2 splits, it's almost like, you know, you really haven't really given like this team of 5 to figure it out like together. And I know everyone's like, oh, the good league players can just figure it out. I'm like, yeah, but that's not how every team's gonna operate. And you got to remember, like, as good as LYON is, they're built around one guy.
Yeah, man, Lion Lion just keep doing it, and it annoys me so much. Primarily because I think it really isn't the way to build a sustainable roster system. But then it is working, but it does feel like they're a glass cannon when
Oh,
the things they're doing. Whereas I feel like FlyQuest, while they're not winning, they're just not winning the LCS stages. I think they're building a really great foundation for long term viability, and also just a fan base to where, for example, I kind of compare Lion, and we know the one player is inspired, by the way.
yeah, yeah. By the way, yeah,
And then I compare that to similar with the LCS when they had Bjergsen and Double Lift.
yeah,
Even LCK with LCK would be semi fine, but LCS with Bjergsen and Double Lift, when those two retired, you lost like 60 to 70% of the reason why people were fans of the LCS.
mm-hmm.
With Lion, apart from the niche cult of Dokla,
Yeah, very, very niche, very
he's
niche.
inspired. A lot of your fans are just gonna go to someplace else.
Yep.
So it's
Well,
really
well,
just
Well, my concern is that also it almost feels like you see Lion just, you know, and let's keep this in mind. Like it's not like Berserker is like a really bad player on his own. It's not like, you know, it's not like Dokla isn't a bad player. It's like these are good players, but they're not really personnel. I mean, they're personalities that will supplement Inspired.
yeah.
They're personalities that supplement his skill set and can fall into line with Inspired, where like and even Saint to a degree, it's like he's gonna defer and he's only gonna say he's gonna like if he's paying attention and Inspired's trying to go on his game review mid game, you know, you know, it almost feels like, you know, Saint will, you know, it almost feel like this team will defer times and their comm strategy is like let's let Inspired kind of run like Kobe. It's like you're gonna build around this guy and you're gonna run the offense through him, and then everyone else kind of falls in line. And I think that's kind of like that will work for a window. It just feels like the window in the LCS is just so small before conversations start talking about like, oh, this team's perpetually choking or this team's perpetually like, you know. And I think, and that's my take is that, you know, Cloud9, yes, they do have 4 players who haven't been to an international in forever, but this group of 5, they've only been together for since last November. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, you know, some teams need more time than others, I feel.
Yeah, kind of more recent because of just Dokla just being a last minute stand.
Yeah, yeah, for Samuda, right?
Yeah. Which I think they probably would have still done well with Zamudo.
I think so too. But I think Zamudo is actually helping more NRG right now
Yeah,
down in NACL because I think they need his presence. Just because, and I think NRG is making a run for that guest spot. I mean, if they can get past Maryville.
that'll be yeah. I mean, they have the funding and support.
Yeah, they do, which is the big thing.
And Speak is a great mind for the game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm saying is that if you look at it like, and also they have Kisno who was like amazing in his 2 weeks at the LCS. Like he wasn't bad. So yeah, and Sushi's really good too. I think they just have a good NRG team. But that's an example. Is like they cruise to NACL like the regular season, regular split, and then lose in the playoffs. Are we gonna start putting the choker tag on them because this group of 5 just did poorly in one playoff? So I think sometimes like don't get me wrong, like Cloud9 should have honest discussions with themselves about like, are they gonna make roster changes for a world split coming up or that? But I think the conversation shouldn't be forced right now. I don't think it's fair to the mid because the jungle mid relationship. I think we've seen glimpses of how good it can be. Yep. I just don't think they're synced up as consistently enough as they need to be.
Yeah, and I'll definitely want some just notes on just how the LCS and then some of the other regions in MSI are going. But I will say with Cloud9, I do think that making a mid-season change from spring to summer isn't necessary. However, I think conversations just about what keeps going on for these situations of how they just barely miss these different international events is going to be really interesting. And I think they should probably have something where it's you give it your all in summer, and then you at this point you just gotta make worlds, because with NA having 3 slots, it's like, can you a team that's a core that's been together for almost 2 years at this point, you have the person who I voted for MVP on the team.
Same. So we're the only two. We're the only two from the media gore, by the way.
What, really? Wow.
Yeah, we're the only two. Everyone went. Some people went Jose. Some went Thanatos. I think ultimately why Vulcan won our media vote was because you and I teamed up. So
yeah, no, but they have a good amount of like experience. I just think that they should, if you can't make the top 3 out of 8 teams at that point, you probably need to at least just make
one change, or
you maybe make a coaching staff change. But I think you don't worry about that until summer split. Yeah.
And I want to be honest with you. I don't even think you make the coaching change split for one reason, because I don't think it narrows the problem.
Yeah.
I think at the end of it all, it's like my take on this is that you gotta look at like you look at your numbers that the teams will look at, and you think, well, we can't really, you gotta like look in pieces rather than the collective 5. It's like now, like what they've gone through 3 mids in 3 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, no, because they went last year they had changed up. Yeah, no, 3 years in 3 years, 3 mids in 3 years. So like, I just think there at some point you just gotta like take a full year and maybe even the lock-in split of next year to kind of see, if one full year and how a meta will shift. And I think that's something that also is very unpredictable, is that some metas will benefit other, mid laners than others. And I think that's kind of what it is. And I just feel like sometimes like don't get me wrong, fans deserve the best. Fans deserve the best in terms of what the team should do to help them. But I don't feel that Jack needs to make a quick pull here, like and try and make a change before summer split.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I think at most, if you wanted to
sub,
I think you get a 6-man that's a young talent, and then you train them up, and then you honestly maybe even get some of the people. I mean, Sushi's kind of sick though, but like
yes.
So like, you get one of those types of players and maybe do
Yeah.
some type of dual thing. Or alternatively, if you wanted just a perspective and kind of a player coach, I think Spica is also a great person to pick up if you want just someone as a consultant for jungle pathing. I think that could really help Blabber open up his mind and eyes for things too, just for
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, it's something that just has to be changed and it has to be addressed. And we know they're going to address it, but I think it has to be more open than it probably should be at times.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to be very open to conversation. Like, why are we inching when the bright lights are brightest? Why are we not performing like we do? And don't get me wrong, best of 5, different ball game, but I'd feel that would help a team like Cloud9 who's been through best of 3s, and there's more urgency in a best of 3. You literally have to end the series. But I just don't know. Like, we could talk about like all the stuff about choking and all that fun stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like I don't think it's necessarily fair that to call for and don't get me wrong, I love Jet. Don't get me wrong, Jet, Jet has his opinions. Jet's very strong, and no, but I don't think it's like a good move to call for a change before the most important split of the season.
Yeah, because like I will say, even though, like, to be blunt and honest, I do think that this team has hit their ceiling.
Yes.
However, I will say I think that their floor genuinely is a top 3 team that should be. Their floor honestly is like a top 2 team that should be going to MSI, and especially Worlds. Can't hit that, then it's placebo effects or some type of team morale thing that you just have to make a change for those reasons. But the group of players, even though I don't think that they do anything super special other than maybe a surprise top 8 at Worlds, this is at the bare minimum a team that should be going to Worlds.
Yeah. And I think that's the case there. And like I said, like, but I don't blow this. I don't blow this team up until November.
Yeah, or maybe their season ends earlier. But okay,
Possibly.
actually, there's sorry to cut you off. There's
No,
actually a funny thing. It's I think Thinkcard was talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like teams that lose to FlyQuest, that's when you have to really start thinking about blowing up your roster. And I'm like, yeah, because FlyQuest is probably going to be that team you're fighting for that final slot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Because Liquid, I feel really confident in that team, and I actually think they will win summer. I think their trajectory is just getting a lot better. The Lion's just gonna be, I don't know. Inspired is a really good player. So
no, Inspired just sees the game so differently. Like,
no, he really does. I mean, in an unreleased interview I did with Rigby, he straight up just said that him and Inspired are the best minds in LYON, which is a very wild statement considering that Rigby's an assistant coach, Inspired's a player, and you have a whole ass head coach.
Reignover, Reignover, and Reignover's not dumb either.
No, he's one of the smartest jungle pathers I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Years.
Like if Reignover's number 3 on that on the mind of that, like that's the thing is that their macros and their macro and game theory is going to be super high. It's now, can they do enough of the game theory to execute? Which is I here's the thing is that I know what they're trying to do with Castle. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like Castle. Castle is a funny guy, very, very honest guy. I get what they're trying to do with Castle. But if you're expecting someone to execute the concepts that Rigby, Inspired, and even Reignover are trying to imply, Dokla is a million times safer. He has seen a lot of League of Legends, and he can probably execute. And which I think is why he executes so high in the playoffs, is because the concepts are now getting more, the pathing and the concepts, that macro is becoming more precise and more targeted to other teams, where now I think that's why Dokla shines with Inspired, because I just think it's just like he understands like what has to be done. Like, and he can do it. And I think this is why, and the same with Berserker. This is why I think, like, I know, like, we're going to talk about LYON versus Team Liquid, come summer split when the time comes.
Yeah, for sure.
But the difference between those two teams literally will come down to Isles and how well he can kind of like stabilize the bot lane against CoreJJ, And can Saint continue his trajectory to at least, battle quid? Because we've seen Saint at his high. Like the thing about Saint is, I love this kid, is because it's like his low floor, high, super high ceiling for this guy.
His mechanics are actually wild. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
No, it's kind of crazy.
Like he could genuinely be a top half LCK mid laner.
Oh yeah. And the thing is that so could Berserker if you would just kind of like chill, and kind of not. I think the thing is that the funny story is that I was in Arizona, is that I heard that and you kind of get it, is that Berserker is kind of aloof.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that will translate in some moments of the game where he's just like autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might happen from time to time. And I think that's when I think he's done a better job in the LCS for now for focusing and maintaining focus. And I think that's why he had such a good spring split.
Yeah,
if you think about it. And I think if he can maintain that growth, he could be an LCK bot laner as well. I don't know, but the Abel's there, so I mean.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I say it like I think they're three primary carries.
Mm-hmm.
Jungle, mid, AD carry are some of the most mechanically gifted players that we have in LCS leagues. And I think that if they went to their
home regions,
well, yeah, I think if Inspired went to his home region, he's just a top jungler. And then I think if you go to Saint, he's at least like a middle of the pack LCK mid laner. And then I feel like Berserker is an LCK
player. Yeah.
Yeah.
He can go anywhere. I mean,
But,
he probably doesn't. He probably doesn't replace Ruler or Pays, but he could and Gumi. But I think he could probably be on DNS Supers.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's kind of what he was on.
Yeah, I mean he was. But I mean the thing is that if I think given how Saint and Berserker have played, if they want to go home, I think they could. I think that'd be a spot for them. I just think winning for them and knowing that if a team's willing to have them with a chance to go to internationals every split, why not stay in LCS? And I think, and the crazy thing is that Zinni's gonna get better. Morgan is finally adapted. Morgan has been steady. So it's kind of like, I guess this brings up my question is at some point, when do you stop saying that, we need less imports and more spots for NA players?
I've been saying that for a long time, to be honest.
I've heard that a while too.
Yeah. And from everyone at this point, especially now. I mean, because honestly, I saw the roster, and I was very shocked to see that they did choose Buhi.
I actually spoke to Nero today about this too.
Yeah, just because I think there's some. I know that he's been a resident for a long. He's honestly just a citizen, and
he is a citizen. He is legally a citizen.
Legally a citizen. It's just. I think it would have been interesting and cool to see, just a native, maybe it's tough, but yeah, it would have been interesting just to see someone just.
Okay, so I did talk to Nero. Funny enough, I talked to him 7 hours ago. I talked to him at noon today about this whole thing, and I asked him how close was Cryo for making the team, and he's like, CryoGen would have benefited. I actually said CryoGen would benefit from going to that international stage, but he felt that he needed subs to be the jungle mid. And he likes Huhi because he could pretty much leave him and LYON alone in the bottom lane, and those two will be fine. And if he needs a mix up in the mid jungle, he didn't want to just put Griffin and APA together. He wanted to put Griffin and Darkwings together. So philosophically, I get why you take Huhi. You need Huhi to kind of it's a role that you don't want to mix up. No, so it's one of those things where if you're gonna and another thing I think contributed to this was not having another ADC ready. Where if you're gonna go you had to kind of choose between which, because Dokla's gonna I don't think there's a better top in America, in the United States, than Dokla right now. I think your best sub there would have been Shirty. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love Shirty, but he's not Dokla who can elevate his game to an international stage right now. So it came down to like who's the subs, and without an ADC to pair with Cryo, it's like it's like one of those weird things where if you're gonna take out two members, like he has two sets, he has like you will not see a game where he mixes mids and jungles. It's gonna be Griffin Darkwing's middle jungle or Blabber APA mid jungle, and I think that was part of it too. And also, like I think if you look at it, you kind of want your experienced players to be on the bot, given how strong bot has been, like how important bot has been in this meta. So it kind of feels like you want to take your strongest mechanically and leadership player that you could bring.
Mhm.
And I think here's the thing is that I know it's kind of weird. He actually might be he might be the IGL.
He probably is, honestly.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like you look at the APA and Blabber, and I don't think those personalities are like great for like 3,000 foot view of the game. So if you put Cryo in that spot, I kind of feel like one of the other four, like it's gonna be Dokla from the top. And I typically don't like my shot caller being from top lane since they're so isolated.
Yeah, I think it probably, if you didn't do Hui, you're probably gonna have Griffin the games that he.
Yeah, it would have to be Griffin. I don't know, but here's the thing: is that I mean, he's tied to Dark Wings, and that's the thing is that I think Inero with his game plan was like, I'm gonna keep my mid jungle pair from what I know, and then take the two young guys, the two rookies, and pair them up. Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content, please give Sage and I a follow on our respective channels. You can follow me on this channel, which is going to be rebranded here shortly, and you can follow Sage at his channel. As he mentioned before, that's at Sage Datuin. Now back to the episode. This spring, what has been some of the storylines, not just for League but for also Valorant, that people should be watching when we get out of this internationals break here? Because the EWC will have Valorant and League early on, and then for some teams they're jumping right from EWC or right into their splits. I think LYON and Sentinels will have I think about a week before they
Yeah.
because unless they make a run to the final, like if they make a run to the final, they'll have like exactly like 5 days before the split starts. So
Yeah.
what are some storylines that you're looking forward from the VCT side and from the LCS side, in terms of like what summer split should be like? Since we just did wrap up, you're wrapping up your VCT internationals. I'm heading into an international, and we're both like because we both cover league as well. So
Yeah.
what are some things you're looking forward to and looking to kind of figure out when it comes to the summer?
I'm really excited to see the teams that actually paid attention to the tier 2 scenes and scouting find success in summer. I think teams like FlyQuest and pretty awesomely Leviatán got that a lot earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Teams that were their core is people from the tier 2 scene, and having spring and the what is it, winter, like I
Yeah, it
forgot.
was.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
forgot.
it's such a weird like
Yeah,
opening split that we had this year. It was like it was lock in for league. I think it was like I don't even know what was yours kickoff. It was just called kickoff. You know, your like VCT kickoff was yours for Americas, and then you had Master Santiago. So it's kind of like it was like two very short splits essentially.
yeah. Like I'm really excited for those teams to be able to have their work done in the first two stages be seen in summer. Because realistically, I don't think FlyQuest was expecting to make MSI or first stand.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't even know if they're expecting to fully make worlds, but I think they have that as a realistic goal. And the cool thing about those teams like FlyQuest and even Leviathan is if they miss out, there's still a good chance you keep that core
Yep.
regardless.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that they're accelerating, especially Leviathan's accelerating a lot faster than people expected. And I think FlyQuest is also doing a great job at being able to progressively get better.
Mm-hmm.
You've got some really exciting teams that could be making for Leviathan making a run at winning champs, and then FlyQuest a shot at being able to make it to the international stage.
I'm going to go the opposite end of your spectrum, and I'm going to be focusing on the two teams that are very trending in the wrong direction, which is NRG and Cloud9.
Okay,
It's kind of like the same thing here. It's like you have like, there's no reason why NRG and Cloud9 don't go to Worlds in their respective games. But would we be surprised if Cloud9 and NRG probably is in a lot safer spot with the points, how the points system
yeah,
works?
they're
They're
probably
probably
lost regardless.
yeah, they're probably locked regardless. But if they did not have that wonderful um
They got
it,
their Santiago,
yeah,
which is really good.
yeah, that's good. That helped them a ton.
Yeah, because they didn't get that many wins in the regular
Yeah,
season.
yeah, but I think that's the thing though, is that you look at teams who have the strength to get to Worlds, and not only get to Worlds, but do a little bit of damage at that stage, but collectively might underperform to the point where they flame out either early in the tournament or not even qualify in the case of Cloud9. And the
Yeah,
scary thing is that FlyQuest is only going to get better. And the thing is that they the thing that's scary about FlyQuest in League is yeah, yeah. I think that's scary about FlyQuest during League is, holy smokes, is just like they're they will go out of their way to find those off meta picks,
yeah,
and they will try it. And I think that champ pool, I was talking with this about with people there, is that we looked at the champ pools of like APA. It's like, it was very like there's only a handful of differences from Quid. And the one big one that stood out to me was Swain.
Hmm.
Like you look at all his other picks, it's like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. But then he got the Swain pick, which he used to win, against, I believe it was Fly.
Mhm.
He used Swain, and I'm like, I feel that's kind of like what's sort of missing at times from Cloud9, is that they kind of lack like that, like who is the surprise but also safe pick for you, like who, like and like and I think one thing that I think people will forget is that APA Ziggs went like 0-2 at the 2 days, and I'm like, well, there you go. It's like, it's not against Lion and Liquid, he went 0-2 with Ziggs.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like like, yeah, give him Ziggs, but now people have game plan. Like, okay, so we just gotta make sure everyone else around him doesn't or don't group together in a team fight. So it's like small stuff like that, I think, that people are starting to recognize. And like Cloud9, to be fair, I think like I like, we know NRG's probably going to do, we'll figure it out. Now the bigger question for me in Cloud9 is, can they have enough open discussions with themselves and realize that here's what's holding us back as a collective unit. And this is one of those things where it can't come from an arrow. He can't force this conversation. It has to come from those five. It has to generate from those five. And they have to have honest conversations of like, what happened. And the thing is that I know that they're all reflective enough to a degree that they'll look at how they played and find everything at fault. But yeah, you could do that. But when did these faults happen? Were they all collectively at once, or were they just one offs? Where at this point in the game, if you win this moment, you win this team fight because of, if let's say if Sven was having a bad team fight, right? Would that, if he has a better team fight, is that a situation you win?
Mhm.
And then how does that change the ultimate game? Because it's one thing to be like, if we all int together, then we're screwed anyway. But it's finding the pockets of when you inted, when whoever inted and kind of screwed up, and kind of being like, what can we have done to mitigate, that mistake? You know, it almost feels like, when at times when they make a mistake, they push harder to correct the mistake. It almost feels like, when someone dies, they're like a step too late to come in to even the numbers. And I'm like, at that point, you just, it just feels like, at some point, when a death is going to occur in game, like maybe just, telling your teammates, hey, you might not want to hop in right now.
Yeah, I mean they're undefeated in the regular season, but I don't think there's a single person that felt like
No,
they're an undefeated team.
no,
In the first stage, yeah, like
yeah,
They genuinely just did look great.
Yeah, but that first stage was super weird. Like, yeah, like DSG was overperforming and FlyQuest underperforming, and it was just like, and Sentinels finished top 3. Like, don't get like Sentinels is the weirdest team, by the way.
Yeah,
Sentinels in the league is the weirdest team to me because it's just like, holy smokes, you have 3 rookies and 2 really, really long bets.
yeah. I mean, honestly, they're another team in like FlyQuest that I actually am excited for. I think they don't have as high of a ceiling as FlyQuest, but I think their their goal of development is just a lot different. Whereas I think FlyQuest is building probably those same exact 5 players
Mhm.
for the long term. I think Sentinels is probably looking at Impact retiring in the next couple of years, and Hui same thing. And then you're just trying to figure out what pieces you want to build around for the future.
Yeah, it's like I really do think the Hambak Darkwing's mid jungle synergy is pretty good.
Yeah, what a great neutralizing player that Hambak is. Just
Oh, he's fantastic, and he's like he's the reason why they neutralized Griffin, and it took them a whole split to figure him out.
yeah, he's like a Korean ex Smithy from like all those years ago.
Yeah, but you know what? That's another guy who might go back to Korea. I can see that. I mean, that's just one thing. Is like I can see him getting up and just going back because I think there's something to be said about wanting to go home. CoreJJ is a different story. I
I
need
mean,
to talk, I need to talk to him because that guy flat out said to me, "LA is home to me." When I get homesick when I go to Korea.
he's got his whole base here. I think he's pretty much that, and he probably just doesn't want to have his life and family there. Like he probably just wants it in LA or just the states at this point.
Yeah, just at this point, out of states, he's a guy who's already won it. He doesn't need to be part of like a LCK team and try to win the worlds. I
Yeah,
think he wants to. I think he wants to try and grow a region.
yeah,
I think that's the vibe I get from him. That's why he stayed in NA for so long because I think he's the caliber of player that an LCK team would have found value in maybe 3 years ago and still
hmm
kept him. So the fact he's still here kind of gives you the idea that he kind of likes it here. But you know,
yeah.
um, I mean, we are talking about what you're looking for, like what are you looking forward to. So honestly, let's go with like we voted for Vulcan MVP. Did you vote for Valorant MVP?
We only do one voting at
Okay,
the end of the year
end of the
for
year.
so we do that actually after champs.
Mhm.
Back in 2023, they said only to focus on VCT America stage, and everyone was like, okay, that's kind of odd because then I'm not going to vote for EG people, even though they won champs. But now they do it in a way where it's after Valorant Champions, and then people in the VCT Americas region, you vote for the All Pros and the
Mhm.
MVPs. Right now, though, it is very early to say, which is unfortunate, primarily because Valorant literally could just change at any time. In
Okay.
kickoff, I would have said someone from Furia. I would have said Qualanoop because he was
Mhm.
just amazing. In stage one, it's really interesting because then it just becomes the rookie Neon and Leviatán. And it's really hard to find those pockets of people that are consistently at the top. You have some people on G2, of course, but like there isn't really a player that I can say has been a consistent top 3 player in both stages.
Mhm.
Just
That's fair. I mean, it's just one of those things where I found it interesting that we have all pros,
yeah,
and
probably yeah,
you guys are more of a traditional like sports league. It feels like, and the
yeah,
ECT where you guys vote at the end rather than treating each split as its own season.
yeah. No, honestly, like if it weren't for championship points, you genuinely could just have any of the. You could legitimately have any of the 12 teams, maybe 10, if we're being really nitpicky. That could
Mhm.
that could have just made top 3 or top 4 in
Yeah.
the Americas. But right now, I probably would go with Leviathan's Duelist Neon. I think that kid's literally just been an insane player, and his raw mechanics are up there in terms of just the actual micro movements that it's just. I knew that kid was going to be so cracked once he turned 18, and it's really cool to see him thriving.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, that's the thing about Valorant is that when I talk about esports to people, they're like, I need like traditional sports like context for some things, and I'm like, okay, so because Valorant, the way it's structured, it's very much like baseball. Holy smokes, it's very much like you don't know if the game's gonna go 2.5 hours to 10, sub 2, 4 hours.
Yeah.
You don't know how long the game's gonna go just because overtime in Valorant is just one of those things you can't account for no matter what. And then League's kind of like, well, League's a little bit more like your traditional sport where, a best of 5 will probably take you you have a set time for a best of 5. It's anywhere between 28 to about 40 minutes because the Elder really changed the game, apparently, I heard, is that in terms of like getting games done faster. So, if you think about it, 5 games at 40, that's 200 minutes. So it's roughly about 320, which is your average length of a football game, so. And that's why I tell people, like, you look at like League is more like a traditional sport where there's a natural timer that internally you can kind of predict like how long it's going to take. While Valorant, I'm like, yeah, sit back and buckle up. You never know when this is going to end.
You really don't.
Like, let's end on this. What is the longest Valorant game you've ever covered?
The longest Valorant game I've ever covered went 60 rounds. It was between Genji and TSM back in 2021. And I had work as a personal trainer the very next day at 4:45 a.m. And the matches, because I was on East Coast, ended at like 2:33 a.m.
60 rounds? So it was what, 32-28 or 30-28?
Yeah, just search up Genji TSM. I hate both those teams for that reason in Valorant side. Because it was so long. Valorant, those teams are so close. Primarily, they're close because the meta is changing. I guess to leave it off on like your point about NRG specifically, because I have more base of Valorant. I think this year's just been a weird meta for them. And I think it's honestly really impressive that they still been able to maintain their consistency just because that team is they're the equivalent of how I would describe an LCK team in terms of just structure and having just things where if you make one mistake, they'll just capitalize on it. That's essentially what NRG is. They have really great players and players that can be really aggressive, but they don't just run at you like Leviatán does, and they're not just going to just fully out aim you in these situations, even though they have really good players. They're a team that's reliant on their systems and playing a slower game. But because of just how fast Valorant has been lately with just before the nerfs, Neon and just Waylay, it just fully goes against their play style. But I do think that this is their floor, and I think they should be okay for when they eventually qualify for champs.
44 rounds.
That was 60. Dude. It was like actually.
I mean, it says 44, so we take it like out. But it was 2020, right?
Yeah.
So, but either way, this is an hour and a half of game time
for one game.
Yeah, with no break. And keep in mind, like, let's contextualize this for sports people. There is no break. You have a timeout, but even the timeout is not long enough to do anything. Halves in football, for contextual sake, goes 30 minutes, and there's plenty of breaks.
So, just to provide context behind this Genji TSM thing, because I was there covering it live, because I've been covering this game for a while. It was a 3-map series.
Yep.
Maps 1 and maps 3. I'm pretty sure it went at least like 20 plus rounds. And then it was that map 2 it was that split. I can't forget it. The split where it's just someone lose at this point because neither of you teams are qualifying for champs. Like, let's be so honest. Like, this is the most mid battle I've ever seen. And then they just went for so long. It was just, and there was tech pauses in between. That's why it took so long. I started following those matches at 4 p.m. Eastern because the days would start at like 5 or
Yeah.
5. Then there's 4 for the broadcast, and then it went to 3. So long. I mean, that's probably what it's gonna feel like when you cover MSI in Korea, or at
Actually,
least from outside.
honestly, I looked at the MSI schedule, 2 matches a day. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
And that's the best part. Well, we're going to talk MSI later this week. We'll actually meet up soon again. But thank you, Sage, for hopping
of course.
on. And, we're going to probably do this more often, between me and Sage, because, we like doing this. We like talking
We do.
about
Yeah.
random stuff.
No, we sure do. Different perspectives for things.
Well,
I'll be writing more again.
yeah. And also, I think the biggest difference for me and Sage is that we kind of just like, we view it from both sides, which is like you look at it from strictly sports. There's no real like fluff with us. It feels like we look at it from a very from the old like the ways newspapers used to cover sports. Sometimes it feels like so. But thank you, Sage, for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Paul,
Really
for
appreciate it.
saying that.
We'll meet up. We'll meet up soon, and then
Our
hopefully we'll
team.
hopefully we'll have a name for this little meeting here of the minds. But for
Yeah,
now, unnamed, to be determined.
to be
TBD.
determined.
Yeah.
TBD. Stay tuned
TBD.
for our MSI Power Rankings. As well.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll have MSI Power Rankings next episode. We're also going to talk Evo because Sage here loves Tekken.
I love Tekken. Yeah. Tournaments.
I am getting back. I'm actually going to boot up Tekken right now for the first time in a year.
That's exciting.
For the first time in a year to see how season 3 is going, because Anakin, you can follow all this on the Sporting Tribune and our personal YouTube channels. I mean, Sage, go ahead and plug your personal YouTube.
Yeah, Sage. I have my Valorant channel is Sage Datuin, just my name. My League of Legends stuff is just Sage Datuin with an LOL at the end.
Yeah,
honestly, just in Sage Datuin or Sage Esports, and then I'll just be there. Just look for the mid part.
He's that popular, guys. People know him. People were asking about him. They were worried about him at LCS finals. They were wondering about him. So I'm just letting you know he's a very popular guy in our scene. So, well, thank you so much, Sage. We'll talk soon.